I recorded every bit of produce from my garden for an entire year, calculated its value based on the prices in major supermarkets, and if you want to know, is it worth it, you have the right video. The results will surprise you and hopefully inspire you to jump in and have a go. In this video, I explain how I grow food here in Southern Australia, what works for me, and importantly, what things cost to set up. If you find this video valuable, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Now let's dive in. So let's get to the totals first. This is my expenses and the total value of produce and the net value after deducting the expenses from the total. This chart alone justifies my efforts for the year, but now let's dive a bit deeper. I weigh everything that comes in from the garden. If it comes in, we're going to eat it or preserve it. I don't weigh things that are inedible, they just go straight into the compost. So the total value represents edible produce only. I weigh produce in the form that they would be weighed in the supermarket. For example, peas are weighed with their shell on, as this is how they are sold in the supermarket. Likewise, I recorded cauliflower as 1 head of cauliflower. My veggie beds are divided into 12 squares, so I also recorded where the produce came from. As a result, I can calculate the average return for each square for a given crop. For example, climbing beans were planted in 4 squares. They produced $135.44 worth of green beans, $33.86 per square. In comparison, potatoes were planted in 44 squares, producing $122.17 of crop, so $2.78 per square. The dollar value per square clearly is dependent on the crops you choose to grow. Anecdotally, the most valuable crops are herbs, but unless you intend to sell them, there's only so much herbs that you can use. My records were for the calendar year 1st of January 2025 to the 31st of December 2025. As a result, I've not taken into account pre-existing assets like seeds I purchased in prior years. Also, I already had the beds in place, so the year's expenses don't include creating the beds. So let's look at the real cost of a single raised veggie bed. A raised bed is really just a big pot. The containers available for raised beds are limited only by your imagination and budget. But as an example, this bed came from Aldi. They seem to stock them each year. Last time they were about $22 to $25. So the container is, say, $25. I put a layer of cardboard across the bottom to block weeds, and then I used some weed cloth to make a sort of bag at the bottom and up the inside walls to contain the potting mix and prevent it washing out under the bottom edges. Finally, the potting mix. This is the most expensive part. I needed about a half a cubic meter of potting mix, about 1/3 of a cubic meter to fill it up, and then the rest as a top-up as the original 1/3 settled. Buying potting mix from a garden supplier is going to be the cheapest way to go. My local supplier charges $60 for a half cubic meter, but you need a trailer to collect it. So in total, you're looking at less than $100 per bed. With regular topping up and the addition of compost and fertilizers, a bed should last about 10 years, so $10 per year. Even if you only grew potatoes, 12 squares, $2.78 a square, which is $33.60, 2 crops a year, so it's $66.78. Let's take a look at the running costs, my expenses for the year. The first one most people will come to is seeds. Seeds range from about $3 to $5 a packet. The amount of seeds in a pack varies greatly with species. Smaller seeds tend to have a lot more than larger seeds. When I started, I wanted to buy as many different types as I could. I was like a kid in a lolly shop. This can get expensive quickly. At say $5 a pack, 20 varieties is $100. Now I buy the seed for plants we actually eat. By all means, pick a plant and try a few varieties of that plant to find the one that grows best and you prefer to eat. Then settle on that variety and move on to the next plant. I also try out a new plant from time to time, especially if I can find some already grown to try, see if I like it. Seeds include things like garlic cloves. In 2025, we bought a lot of different varieties of garlic. When I harvested them, I kept some of the best cloves and replanted them this year. Any crops you can collect the seed from, or cloves in the case of garlic, become essentially free next year. Most heirloom plants will grow true from their seeds. Raising seeds is pretty simple. I use little seed raising trays with covers. I make up seed raising mixture, but it's available to buy and quite inexpensive. My other expenses were for animal fertilizer, sugar cane straw for mulch, and ingredients to make my own potting mix. I have a video demonstrating this. I also buy additional netting each year to protect my crops from insects and birds. If I costed in the value of my time, the expense side would obviously be a lot larger, but I feel there are other compensations for the time I spend in the garden. What value do I place on the peaceful pleasure I get from gardening? The enjoyment of produce grown cleanly and eaten fresh, the benefits from being physically active in the fresh air, the sense of satisfaction when I harvest something I've grown from a seed. As a pensioner, the net value of my produce is not considered as income by Centrelink or the tax office. But every dollar I don't spend in the supermarket for groceries is a dollar available for something else. Let's think about maximizing your return. To maximize the financial return from a vegetable garden, focus on high-value crops such as lettuce, herbs, cherry tomatoes, snow peas, capsicum and chili, garlic, berries, and Asian greens such as bok choy. Use square-foot gardening techniques and raised beds to allow intensive planting. Close planting also reduces weeds. Less work. Use vertical supports to garden in 3 dimensions. A green bean, plant 2 meters high, still uses 1 square. Succession planting, replacing harvested crops immediately, sowing and planting the same crop at staggered times to extend the harvest time period. Establishing a way to compost the inedible parts of produce provides free fertilization to your soil. A worm farm can be a valuable addition to overall fertility for your garden. Reducing costs will often increase your net return more than increasing production. Perennials such as raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, asparagus and rhubarb have high long-term returns because they only need planting once. A greenhouse or even a simple clear plastic tunnel can extend the growing season, allowing earlier and later growing by sheltering crops from cold and wind. Covers for individual beds can easily and cheaply be made. Many people use plastic electrical conduit formed into hoops over the bed. The conduit frame can be used to support netting in the summer to protect from insects. A simple polytunnel like this will allow earlier tomatoes and winter salads. So, in summary, grow what's expensive to buy. Keep your beds occupied year-round. Plant intensively. Use vertical growing methods where you can. Minimize purchased inputs and focus on crops your household regularly consumes. Crops are seasonal, but we want access to those crops year-round. Sometimes more produce comes in than we can eat, so finding a way to preserve the excess for later use is essential. Grow what you eat and eat what you grow. The preserving method most commonly available is freezing. Freezing produce is quick, easy and reliable. We're all used to using frozen produce, so this method fits in nicely with our pre-existing routines. Making preserves and jams is the next most accessible. Old jam jars and a saucepan and you have all you need to make jams. Many crops can be successfully dried. Dehydrators are readily available and reasonably priced. Canning. Acidic produce can be water-bathed, Fowler's Bacola for example. Non-acidic fruits and meats must be pressure canned to be safe. Water bathing equipment is cheaper than a pressure can. However, both use mason jars which are reusable but quite expensive to buy in the first instance. If you're looking at starting to grow food, I would suggest you start with fruit trees. A well cared for fruit tree will produce many years, but it can take a few years to grow large enough to start producing. So starting fruit trees off first is worth considering. If you have limited space, fruit trees are still an option. Dwarf varieties are available which take up less space, or can live happily in large pots. Multigraft trees are available that provide more than one type of fruit on the same trunk. Also, many fruit trees can be trained to grow flat along a fence, or espaliered. Fruit trees vary widely in price. Multigraft trees can be between $100 and $200 or more for a tree with a lot of grafts. But each graft represents a separate tree. but without the extra space. Once fruit trees start producing, they can quickly become some of your most prolific sources of food. Of course, the benefits of growing your own food extend beyond the dollar savings. Let's have a look at some of them. There are a number of non-financial benefits. Having a garden providing food brings a level of food security to allow you to weather shortages in the supermarket. The food you grow will taste better, be fresher, and more nutritious. By redirecting your food waste into composting or worm farming, you'll be reducing waste entering landfill, a win for the garden and the environment. In one sense, the garden starts repaying you at the moment you start. You are outside in the fresh air, moving around, creating something. Psychological and physical benefits from day one. There's also an intellectual challenge, planning and researching crops, sourcing products and resources, working out when to do what. A successful gardener is a planner, thinker, student, researcher and experimenter all rolled into one. Something to think about. We are fortunate that so much information and advice is now literally at our fingertips. This might be the best time there ever was to start gardening. If your single bed of 12 squares costing about $10 a year returns about $30 worth of potatoes in 20 weeks, you've already passed break even. I hope you are now convinced that growing food in your garden is not only a profitable endeavor, but also a deeply rewarding one. If you're just starting out, remember to start small. Consider planting a fruit tree or two and set up a single raised bed. Track your income and expenditure just like I did and reinvest your profits into next year's plans. The numbers speak for themselves, but the benefits go far beyond just dollars. If you found this video helpful and you're ready to start your own profitable garden, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. I share new tips and experiments every few weeks to help you grow more food. If you'd like more information on raised beds, have a look at this video here. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Happy gardening!